In a small town where everybody knew everybody's business, one woman carried a secret so heavy it could break a heart just to look at her. She wore loose clothes, she walked slower, she smiled less, and when people asked why she looked different, she always changed the subject. Nobody knew she was pregnant, nobody knew why she was hiding it, but by the time the truth came out, there wasn't a single dry eye in that hospital room. Her name was Adaeze. She was 26 years old and she ran a small tailoring shop at the edge of the market, the kind of shop where old women came to fix torn wrappers and young girls came to get their first fitted gown made for a wedding or a naming ceremony. Adaeze had a gift with her hands. She could look at a piece of fabric and already see the dress it wanted to become. People in the town said she had blessed fingers, and they weren't wrong. Her shop was small, but it was always full. She wasn't just known for her sewing, she was known for her kindness too. If a customer couldn't pay full price, Adaeze would quietly finish the job anyway and tell them to pay whenever they could. Her mother, Mama Chidinma, used to shake her head and say, "Adaeze, this is why you have no savings." But she said it with a proud smile because deep down she loved that her daughter had a soft heart. Adaeze lived with her mother and her younger sister, Ngozi, in a modest house not far from the market. Her father, Papa Abena, had passed away some years back, but his presence still lingered in the way the family prayed before meals and the way Mama Chidinma spoke of him like he was only away on a trip, not gone forever. Mama Chidinma's health had never fully recovered after his death. She had a weak heart, the kind doctors warned needed to be protected from shock and stress. The family knew this. They tiptoed around bad news in that house the way you tiptoe around a sleeping baby. Adaeze's life had one more piece that made it feel complete, a man named Kelechi. He worked at a construction company on the outskirts of town, tall, well-built, with a laugh that could fill an entire room. They had been together for almost 3 years and everyone assumed marriage was only a matter of time. When Kelechi finally proposed, right there in the middle of the market square with half the town watching and cheering, Adaeze cried so hard she could barely say yes. It felt like a dream stitched together just for her, the way she stitched dreams for other people every single day. For a while, life was good. The engagement brought joy to the whole family. Mama Chidinma, despite her weak heart, danced at the small celebration they held, saying it was worth any risk to see her daughter this happy. Ngozi teased her sister endlessly about wedding plans. The whole town spoke of Adaeze and Kelechi as the couple everyone wanted to be like. But somewhere in the middle of all that happiness, small things began to shift. Kelechi started working late more often. His phone, which used to sit openly on the table, now stayed in his pocket, buzzing quietly at odd hours. He would step outside to answer calls, laughing softly into the phone in a way he never used to laugh with Adaeze anymore. She noticed, of course she noticed. But she pushed the thoughts away, telling herself that stress from work could change a man's mood, that love sometimes just needed patience. Then one morning, Adaeze woke up feeling nauseous. She thought it was the smell of frying oil from the kitchen. But when it happened again the next day and the day after that, she began to suspect something else. She went quietly to a small clinic outside of town, the kind where nobody from her neighborhood would recognize her. The nurse smiled and told her the news. She was pregnant. Adaeze walked out of that clinic holding her stomach like she was holding the most precious gift the world had ever given her. She imagined Kelechi's face lighting up when she told him. She imagined her mother crying tears of joy, forgetting all about her weak heart for one shining moment. She imagined Ngozi jumping around the house, already planning to be the best auntie in the world. She decided she would surprise him. She would go to his workplace that evening and tell him there, somewhere memorable, somewhere they could always look back on and say, "This is where we found out about our child." She got there just as the sun was beginning to set, the sky turning that soft orange color that made everything look gentler than it really was. She asked one of the workers where Kelechi was, and he pointed toward the small site office at the back. Her heart was racing with excitement as she walked, rehearsing in her head how she would tell him. But when she reached the door and looked through the gap where it hadn't fully closed, her whole world went silent. Kelechi was there, but he wasn't alone. A woman named Ifoma, someone Adaeze vaguely recognized from town, was in his arms, laughing at something he'd said, her hand resting on his chest like it belonged there. Adaeze stood frozen, her hand still on her stomach, watching the man she loved hold another woman the way he used to hold her. She didn't scream, she didn't cry, not yet. She simply pushed the door open, and the silence that followed felt louder than any shout could have been. Kelechi's face drained of color. Ifoma quickly stepped back, mumbling something about needing to leave, and disappeared without looking back. For a moment, nobody said anything. Then Kelechi tried to explain, the way men always try to explain the unexplainable. He said it was a mistake. He said it meant nothing. He said he still loved her. Adaeze finally spoke, her voice shaking but steady. She asked him one question: how long? He hesitated, and that hesitation told her everything before his mouth even opened. Months. It had been going on for months. Every late night, every hidden phone call, every distracted conversation, it all made sense now, falling into place like puzzle pieces she never wanted to see completed. She turned and walked away before he could say another word. She didn't tell him about the baby, not that night, not for a long time after. Adaeze went home that evening carrying two secrets instead of one, a broken heart and a new life growing quietly inside her. She sat on her bed long after everyone else had gone to sleep, staring at the wall, replaying the image of Kelechi and Ifoma over and over in her mind. She thought about the child she was carrying, a child who would grow up asking about a father who wasn't there. She thought about the shame the town would place on her, an unmarried woman, pregnant, abandoned. In her community, people didn't always ask the right questions. They didn't ask what the man did wrong, they asked what the woman did to push him away. The next morning she called off the engagement. She didn't explain the full story to anyone, not even to Ngozi at first. She simply said it was over, and the town, as towns do, filled in the blanks with their own version of the truth. Whispers followed her to the market. Some said she was too proud, some said she must have done something terrible. Nobody imagined that she was the one who had been betrayed. Adaeze absorbed all of it in silence. She had bigger worries than gossip. Her mother's heart condition had been getting worse, and the doctor had been clear: any major shock, any deep stress could be dangerous. Adaeze sat with that warning every single day, turning it over in her mind like a stone she couldn't put down. If breaking off an engagement had already caused enough concern in the house, what would happen if her mother learned her daughter was pregnant, unmarried, and abandoned all at once? Adaeze couldn't bear the thought of her mother's heart giving out under the weight of that truth. So she made a decision. She would carry the pregnancy alone in silence for as long as she could. She began wearing looser wrappers and longer blouses, the kind of clothes a tailor could easily convince people were simply the new style she was trying out. She skipped family gatherings where questions might come too close to the truth. When Mama Chidinma commented that she looked tired, Adaeze blamed it on work. When Ngozi noticed a slight change in her sister's body, Adaeze brushed it off with a nervous laugh and a change of subject. But Ngozi wasn't easily fooled. She was younger, but she wasn't foolish. She began watching her sister more closely, noticing the way Adaeze avoided certain foods, the way she pressed her hand gently against her stomach when she thought no one was looking, the way she flinched slightly whenever Kelechi's name came up in conversation. One evening, when their mother had gone to bed early, Ngozi sat beside her sister and asked her directly if she was pregnant. Adaeze broke down in her sister's arms that night, months of held-back tears finally spilling out. She told Ngozi everything: the betrayal, the pregnancy, the fear of what the news might do to their mother's heart. Ngozi held her tightly and made a promise: she would keep the secret. She would help her sister however she could. From that night on, Ngozi became Adaeze's quiet shield, covering for her, helping her hide her growing belly, making excuses whenever needed. The months that followed were some of the loneliest of Adaeze's life. She worked through her pregnancy, sewing dresses for other women's celebrations while carrying her own hidden joy and pain at the same time. There were nights she cried herself to sleep, wondering if she was strong enough to do this alone. There were mornings she looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back at her, someone tired, someone scared, someone carrying far more than just a child. She thought about Kelechi often, not with anger anymore, but with a strange kind of grief, the kind you feel for someone who is still alive but is gone from your life all the same. He had tried to reach her a few times in the early months, sending messages asking to talk, but she never replied. She wasn't ready. She wasn't sure she would ever be ready. Meanwhile, Mama Chidinma's health continued to decline slowly. She grew tired more easily. Her breathing became heavier on bad days. The doctor increased her medication and repeated the same warning each visit: no stress, no shocks, nothing that could put unnecessary strain on her heart. Every time Adaeze heard those words, she felt her secret grow heavier, but she also felt more certain that hiding it was the right thing to do, even if it was breaking her from the inside. As the months passed, Adaeze's body changed in ways that became harder to hide. She began avoiding the market during busy hours, sending Ngozi to handle deliveries instead. She kept her tailoring shop's front curtain drawn a little more than usual. She made excuses to stay indoors when family friends came to visit. It was exhausting, carrying a secret that large in a town that small, but she pressed on, driven by her love for her mother and her quiet determination to protect her at any cost. By the time Adaeze reached her final month, she rarely left the house at all. Ngozi handled almost everything for her, and Mama Chidinma, though weaker, still had no idea what her elder daughter had been hiding beneath her clothes and her forced smiles for nearly 9 months. Then, one quiet evening, everything changed. Adaeze had been sitting in the living room when she felt the first sharp pain grip her stomach. At first she thought it was nothing, just discomfort from sitting too long. But the pain came again, stronger this time, and she gasped, gripping the edge of the chair. Ngozi rushed to her side immediately, panic rising in her voice as she asked what was wrong. Before Adaeze could even answer, another wave of pain hit her, and she realized with a mixture of fear and disbelief that she was going into labor. The commotion could not stay hidden any longer. Mama Chidinma, hearing the noise from her room, came out slowly, asking what was happening. And there, in the middle of the living room, with no more clothes to hide behind and no more excuses left to give, the truth finally revealed itself. Mama Chidinma's eyes moved from her daughter's pained face to her swollen stomach, and for a moment the room went completely still, as if time itself paused to absorb the shock. There was no time to explain, no time for questions or accusations. Adaeze's pain was increasing rapidly, and Ngozi, thinking fast despite her own shock, ran outside to call for help. A neighbor with a car rushed them to the hospital, Mama Chidinma insisting, despite her weak heart and her daughter's protests, that she would not stay behind. She said she needed to be there, whatever it cost her. Adaeze, through her pain, begged her mother to sit down, to breathe slowly, terrified that the shock alone might hurt her. But Mama Chidinma held her daughter's hand the entire ride, tears streaming down her face, whispering that everything was going to be all right. At the hospital, everything moved quickly. Nurses rushed Adaeze into a delivery room while Ngozi stayed close, holding her sister's hand as tightly as she could. Mama Chidinma sat in the waiting area, her chest tight with worry, a nurse beside her checking her pulse every few minutes as a precaution. Inside the delivery room, things did not go smoothly. The doctor, a calm and experienced woman named Dr. Yuzo, noticed complications almost immediately. Adaeze's blood pressure had spiked dangerously and the baby's heartbeat had become irregular. The room filled with tense energy, quiet urgency in every movement, every instruction. Adaeze, exhausted and terrified, could hear the concern in the voices around her even through her pain. She thought of her mother waiting outside. She thought of the baby she had protected in secret for 9 months. She thought of everything she had sacrificed to get to this moment, and she found strength she didn't know she still had left. Minutes passed like hours. Then finally, a small, sharp cry broke through the tense silence of the room. "Doctor." Yuzo's shoulders relaxed as she lifted the baby, checking her carefully before placing her gently onto Adaeze's chest. A baby girl. Adaeze looked down at her daughter for the first time, tears streaming down her face, all the pain of the past 9 months melting into something that finally felt like relief, like reward, like love. Outside, when the news reached Mama Chidinma that both her daughter and grandchild were safe, she broke down in tears of her own, tears that came not from shock but from overwhelming gratitude. When she was finally allowed into the room, she moved slowly toward the bed, her eyes locked on the tiny bundle in her daughter's arms. Adaeze, still weak but smiling through exhaustion, looked up at her mother and quietly apologized for hiding the truth for so long. She explained everything: the betrayal, the fear, the desperate need to protect her mother's fragile heart from more pain. Mama Chidinma listened silently, her hand trembling as she reached out to touch her granddaughter's tiny fingers for the first time. When Adaeze finished speaking, her mother didn't scold her. Instead, she pulled her daughter into the gentlest embrace she could manage, whispering that she understood, that she was proud of her, that no secret could ever change how much she loved her. She said that a mother's heart, weak or not, was always strong enough to hold her children's pain if only they trusted her enough to share it. The room, filled with nurses, family, and quiet tears, felt heavier and lighter all at once, the way truth often feels when it finally arrives. The family named the baby Amara, meaning grace, because that was exactly what she felt like after 9 months of silence and sacrifice. An unexpected grace arriving at the end of a long, painful road. Word of the birth spread through the town quickly, as news always does in small places, and with it, slowly, the truth about Kelechi's betrayal came out as well. When Kelechi eventually heard that Adaeze had given birth, he came to the hospital, standing outside her door for a long time before finding the courage to knock. When Adaeze finally agreed to see him, he broke down, apologizing, begging for forgiveness, asking for a chance to be part of his daughter's life. Adaeze listened quietly, her heart a mixture of old wounds and new strength. She didn't shout at him, she didn't send him away in anger. She simply told him that trust, once broken that deeply, could not be rebuilt overnight, but she would allow him the chance to know his daughter slowly, carefully, on her terms. In the weeks that followed, life in that small house began to settle into a new rhythm. Mama Chidinma, against all worry, seemed stronger than she had been in months, as if holding her granddaughter had given her heart a new kind of medicine no doctor could prescribe. Ngozi became the proud auntie she always dreamed of being, spoiling little Amara every chance she got. And Adaeze, though scarred by betrayal and exhausted from 9 months of hidden fear, found a quiet peace she hadn't expected. She had done something incredibly hard, and she had done it out of love, not for herself but for the mother who raised her. People in town who once whispered about her now spoke differently, with respect and admiration for a woman who had carried so much silently, protecting the people she loved even while breaking on the inside. Adaeze never sought their approval. She had learned, through everything she endured, that some of the strongest kinds of love are the ones nobody sees until the very end. And so, the woman who hid her pregnancy for 9 months finally understood something deeper than the secret itself. It was never really about hiding a child. It was about protecting a mother's fragile heart, even at the cost of her own peace. It was about choosing love over comfort, sacrifice over ease, silence over selfishness. And when the truth finally came out, it didn't destroy her family, it brought them closer than ever before, wrapped gently around the tiny hands of a baby girl named Amara, grace itself, arriving exactly when she was needed most.